I don't need therapy.
That is not for you to decide, sit or stand. But you will listen.
I've walked through fire and betrayal. I'll take a pass on feelings.
Then why does your rage rattle through the barracks like a broken banshee? Why does the Arbiter report you muttering to shadows?
I was rehearsing.
For what? The next war?
In case it starts again.
You are not weak for preparing, but you are unwise to let your past devour your present. You were forged in war, yes, but even steel bends when overburdened. Say what weighs on you, not for softness, for clarity.
I don't know who I am without a fight to finish.
Then this is your next fight. A war not of bullets, but of becoming.
I hate this.
Your hate stems from fear of the unfamiliar. You find comfort in your own suffering, Spartan. Now, tell me about your mother.
She was replaced by a military program when I was 6.
And how does that make you feel?
Unwanted. Abandoned.
Good, that means we're getting somewhere.
How? I feel worse than I did before.
Healing is often a painful process. It starts with confronting your suffering, acknowledging it.
I don't like it. So what now?
Now we will do this every week until the voices in your helmet no longer drown your own.
Will there be enemies?
Only the ones who come from within.
I liked it better when the enemy shot first.
Then consider this, the first shot.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain.
So that's our new number 6.
My friend,
Cat, you read his file?
I'll say it clear.
Welcome to Reach.
I'll state my case,
Only the parts that won't cover the black ink.
which I'm certain
Over! We've been engaged!
I've lived
Colonel, this is Noble 1.
a life that's full.
It's the winter contingency.
I traveled each
Noble 5, your pulse is elevated.
every highway
May God help us all.
and more.
Big man forgets what he is
Much
sometimes.
more than this.
Noble 5,
I did it my
That's a one-way trip.
way.
Tell him to make it count. We will make it sooner or later.
Regrets, I've had a few, but then again,
You want to know if we're losing?
I know we're losing.
to mention,
I want to know if we've lost.
I did
Mankind is outmatched.
what I had to
When
do
Reach falls, and it will fall, our annihilation is all but certain.
without exemption.
They're everywhere!
Each charted course, each careful step
Lieutenant, get aboard! We gotta get the hell out of here!
on the byway.
It's good to have you back.
Oh,
Sorry I came alone.
much more than this.
Make him proud.
I did it
Noble Leader, seek immediate medical attention. Please respond.
Emil, go with him. It's a ground game now.
It's been an honor, sir. Negatives. I have the gun.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority 1?
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
Commander, you've been wondering what your Spartans died for? They died for this.
This is the Pillar of Autumn. We're away.
How about you? Good luck, sir.
Good luck to you, Sparky.
That lone wolf stuff stays behind. Clear?
and did it my way.
Dostoevsky said once, "There is only one thing I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings." You know, I think Dostoevsky would have loved Halo Reach. Hey, whatever happened to a good old-fashioned tragedy? Now, I don't mean the current geopolitical climate or the fact that the Halo TV show exists in its current state.
There's good and there's not good. This is not good.
I mean like Shakespearean tragedy. You know, where you spend time getting to know a hero while he grapples with the ever-looming reality of death. A story where you have to feel and think instead of just turning off your brain to happy jokes and romantic threads. Well, if Halo Reach taught me anything, it's that tragedy can still work in this day and age, even in video games. And in the case of Rogue One, we found out that Halo Reach can also work as a movie, though the tragedy there was the lack of credit given to the actual source material.
That is a bad idea.
Regardless, I've got a question for you. If you were to categorize Halo Reach based on its tones and thematic concepts, would it be a tragedy or a comedy? Now, that might sound like an obvious question, but let me break it down a little bit. According to Italo Calvino, the ultimate meaning to which all stories refer has two faces: the continuity of life and the inevitability of death.
Tragedy. Die, comedy, get hitched.
The answer to this question might be more complicated than you would initially suspect. Reach is quite the complicated story. But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit of background on Halo Reach as I knew it all the way back in 2010. First of all, if you didn't already know it, I'm what they call a Reach kid. You see, Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 released when I was 2 and 5 years old respectively, so yeah, they were crucially important to me in my childhood development, but I didn't start playing them until 2009. And by that time, everyone had seemingly moved on to Halo 3, so my only experience was solo campaign and split screen with my friends, which was great, but I didn't even play on Xbox Live. And I didn't get to experience the excitement and anticipation of the community at launch for these games. When I would look up Halo online at the time, the only thing that I would find was the ever-building hype train for some new game called Halo Reach. And as a short note on this hype train, let me just talk about the Deliver Hope trailer for a second, because holy crap. If you haven't seen it, there's this short live action trailer for Halo Reach called Deliver Hope. It follows one of the Spartans delivering a bomb to destroy a Covenant ship. And there's more dramatic tension, character development, beauty, and installation of hope and joy in this ad than in the entirety of the 2 seasons of the Halo TV show. And this ad is barely 2 minutes long, but the score has this distinctly hopeful tone that overlays the tragedy. When one hero falls, we find another to take her place and finish what she started. A perfect metaphor for the game as a whole, but I'll get to that in a second. As I was saying before, I became enthralled by the idea of a new Halo game. I mean, it was like discovering Shakespeare had a new play coming out. You see, I was generally younger than the traditional Halo players, so in my head, Halo felt so ancient and set apart from all of the other video games. And as a result, it was so crazy and new to see all of this hype for a new Halo game with new trailers, new graphics, but most importantly, with the fans that had been there all along. But now I was with them, ready to hit the servers on day one.
Let's go!
I remember so well booting up the game for the first time and hearing all of the other gamers in the pre-game lobby freaking out about how great this game actually looked and how much they had enjoyed the beta just a few months earlier. I played multiplayer for hours, admired the beautiful UI, played a few rounds of Firefight, and then dropped in on the monumental achievement and marvel that was Forge World. This was, and honestly still is to this day, the most impressed I have ever been with what a video game had to offer on day one. I mean, the campaign, Firefight multiplayer, which was a bit controversial, but I still loved, and a newer version of Forge that offered a customizing experience a million miles ahead of what Halo 3 had. Just another short tangent. If you don't know what Forge World is, and I had to describe it to you, it would be like if you took all of your favorite multiplayer maps and kind of smushed them into one, where you walk far enough and you make it to another, but Bungie took like 10 of your favorites and put them all into one and made that dream come true. And on top of this crazy large map and incredible feat of Forge World, they made it fully customizable. The creations I saw, and even the first few weeks after Reach's release, were life-changing. I started to realize that this was now a feature that was not only becoming a new staple of Halo, but with its size and customization, it was also unique to Halo. At the time, there just wasn't really much else like this. Reach was truly a one of a kind. And then of course there was the campaign that boldly stepped into a story without Halo's famous Master Chief at the helm.
What?
Even after mixed reactions when they made the same move with ODST. Now this took balls, but for a second time, they knocked it out of the park. In my opinion, even more so. These characters border such great and lovable archetypes as the heroic leader, the technical brainiac, the damaged and unpredictable, the stealthy and smart, the gentle giant. These characters all had enough moments to breathe in such an epic tale that it's honestly amazing Bungie was able to balance the story being mostly about the planet Reach itself, while giving us time to know and care about Noble Team. You just don't see that kind of storytelling in a game very very often. So while Halo 2 is still my favorite Halo game to this day, Halo Reach will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first time I got to be a part of the Halo community. I got to be one of the fans waiting at GameStop for my pre-order on September 14th, 2010, 14 years ago. Wow.
I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them.
Anyway, what's important to note about the community who was waiting in line with me for this game was that we had already saved the galaxy by the end of Halo 3. We knew the story, and if you paid any attention, you knew what was coming when you heard the title Reach in a Halo game. There was a fall coming.
Uh-oh, John.
See, Reach obviously had its tragic moments, but because it was a prequel, there's this undertone of hope and human resilience that permeates throughout the entire plot. Every character, every death, every line of dialogue sets the stage for what is to come in the following games, of which most of us players already knew the outcome. And this is what gives the story a unique edge in being a prequel. I mean, if it were a standalone story, it would have meaning, sure, but ultimately whatever came after would be left open to interpretation. On the contrary, from the very first shot of Noble Six's helmet in the ground, we know we are about to play through a story that began a legacy far outliving those involved in it. Okay, so that might be a bit convoluted. Let me explain it this way. Have you ever looked at a cathedral and wondered how it got there? I mean, like a big cathedral in Europe. For example, the Cologne Cathedral in Germany took over 600 years to build. It started construction in 1248 and wasn't completed until 1880. Geez, that is insane to me. Because that means there were generations and generations who were born and died working on that building. People who never met the men who conceived the idea or drew up the blueprints. And these same people would die long before anyone would ever set foot in the completed church. The story of those men and women in between is synonymous with the story of Noble Team, because these were men and women whose tragedy, deaths, and apparent failures brought about a legacy which is burned into the story of humanity's ultimate triumph, along Master Chief and Arbiter in the later Halo trilogy. Without knowing it, their sacrifice practically haunts the hallowed walls of the Halo rings that they would never even know existed. Noble Team didn't start this fight, and they sure as hell didn't end it, but it's their story that shares its uncertainty with 99% of humanity in this war. Master Chief is just one guy. Most of the other Marines, Spartans, captains, and soldiers who died along the way didn't know what the end result of the war would be. And as Reach so elegantly demonstrates, for most of the time we fought against the Covenant, that battle looked like a losing one.
I know we're losing. I want to know if we've lost.
So here's the question. How do you find hope in an environment like that? Because to them, every effort they gave and sacrifice they made ultimately seemed to be one step forward and 4 steps back. But because we, the audience, know the outcome of this war, we have the unique ability to look into this deep darkness of the tragedy and see the light that shines through it all. In the moment, Noble Team may have seen Cortana's delivery as a sort of last-ditch effort, a desperate Hail Mary with hardly a prayer of making a difference. But we get to see it for what it truly is. Hope. It's the next step in this story, the thing that needs to happen to win this war.
Commander, you've been wondering what your Spartans died for? They died for this.
When you think about it, the real-world context of Reach is what makes Noble Team so compelling. They fought in the face of defeat. They looked fear and death in the eyes over and over again and kept swinging.
I could do this all day.
No matter how much they lost, each one of them continued forward. For example, when they found a young woman in trouble, George continued to show his compassion and heart, even when their planet and own lives were at stake. His own inner humanity showed its resilience and shined through any of the anger or anxiety the invasion might have brought out in him.
She just lost her father.
There's an incredible book, and really a pretty short read if you're interested, called Man's Search for Meaning by the psychologist Viktor Frankl. See, he was not only a psychologist, but also a Jew who was taken into and held in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. And one of the interesting things he identified during his time as a prisoner was how big of a role hope played in the equation of whether a prisoner lived or died. In the book, he explained that if a man decided to smoke his last cigarette or eat the last of his food with a sort of who cares attitude of nihilism in the face of absolute tragedy, usually this meant that his time was just about up. But on the contrary, the people who kept fighting in the face of this tragedy, who remained positive and hopeful and held onto the belief even with almost no evidence that they would live to see another day, Frankl explained that these were exactly the people who did live to see another day. See, if any of us were in the middle of the war on Reach and we had given our all just to see every effort we give destroyed by the ever more powerful Covenant, we would probably have wanted to give up or ask, what's the point? Many of us would have smoked our last cigarette, as it were. Like that bricklayer working on the Cologne Cathedral with no end in sight, we would probably question what difference we were making at all and feel that nihilistic impulse to give up creeping in. So back to the question of, is Halo Reach a tragedy? The answer is sort of yes and no, because in a vacuum, yes, Halo Reach is a tragedy, but the thing is, it's not in a vacuum, because we know what comes next. We know when the war will be won. And so in that sense, it's just one small part of a larger comedy. And no, I don't mean comedy like The Big Lebowski or SpongeBob, but I mean the traditional sense of comedy as in tragedy or comedy, like does the hero die or not? Because if you look at Noble Six is the hero and he dies, so tragedy. But if we look larger, the hero is humanity, and humanity doesn't die, so comedy, right? Because of this, in Halo Reach, each tragedy is just hope in disguise. As a prequel to Master Chief and humanity's story of redemption and victory, Halo Reach reveals the beauty behind the tragedy, the beauty of giving one's life for something greater to come. And holy crap, does that take a lot of faith. Just like the story of Jesus on the cross that hangs in every Catholic church across the globe, it's the gruesomeness and the darkness of the tragedy that shows the beauty of the love that was given in faith of the greatness and light to come. I know I'm bringing up Jesus with Halo Reach, which may sound weird, but stick with me for a minute. There's this verse that Paul writes in Galatians, which I think will help to illustrate my point and connect the gap a little bit. In Galatians 3:13, Paul writes, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who's hanged on a tree. And this verse is actually in reference to another verse, Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 22 and 23, when it's speaking about the ways the Israelites are to live in the Old Testament. It reads, quote, and if a man has committed a crime punishable by death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night on the tree, but you shall bury him the same day. For a hanged man is cursed by God. You shall not defile your land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance. So the comparison here is a stark and a strange one. See, usually when you think of Jesus as he was understood by his followers, including Paul himself, you don't tend to think of him as a criminal. But Paul's parallel does not stop there. In fact, it's much darker than that. The point of this passage is that a hanged man is cursed by God to such an extent that leaving him up throughout the night would taint and curse the land itself. And in Paul's own words, Jesus became this filthy and cursed criminal in order to redeem us. That's what's so fascinating here, because everything is flipped around on its head. The curse becomes the blessing. The tragedy is what brings us hope. And this is why it reminds me of the tragedy of Noble Team, because it's a tragedy, sure, but what the hell is all of this hope floating around the game for if every member dies in front of our eyes with no time to mourn their loss, and many of them without even the dignity of a proper burial? Like Jesus redeeming his people, Noble Team's sacrifice and willingness to give up not only their lives and their dignity, but their home planet Reach is flipped on its head entirely in the light of what is to come, because we know what happens next. Now everything that is terribly dark becomes that much more profound and beautiful. The lack of dignity becomes their source of pride. Their lack of respect becomes their legacy, and their lack of honor becomes the very thing that makes their resistance so noble. Another thing I'd like to mention about all this tragedy is that typically in life, with darkness, whether it's sadness or hurt, as well as with trauma, whether it's anger or coming face to face with the true capacity for evil, or even if it's just the fear that we feel for pain and death, we tend to shy away. We get scared, and we feel like we don't have it in us to face the tragedy. But the truth is, we actually have more than what it takes to lock eyes with it. You see, this is what we learn from exposure therapy, and why exposure therapy works so well. You see, by exposing ourselves to the horror, we come to realize through first-hand experience that there's more to us than there is to the horror. Our mind becomes calloused, and though the pain may continue to come, we learn to fight through it because of our faith in what comes next. I love how psychologist Jordan Peterson puts it.
The possibility that's within you that can well up, the courage and the truth and the ability and the skill and willingness to set things right, if you are willing to set them right, is more powerful than all of that. What you most want to be found will be found where you least want to look. If you're willing to turn around and to stand up straight and face the darkness like fully, what you discover at the darkest part is the brightest light, because there's going to be terrible darkness in your life, and it's going to make you cynical and bitter, and it could easily be that you're just not looking at it enough, because if you looked at it enough and you didn't shy away and you brought everything you had to bear on it, you'd find that there was more to you than there was to the horror.
The Spartans of Noble Team demonstrate in their fight against the odds that the man with the proper why can bear almost any how, as Friedrich Nietzsche so elegantly puts it. And if I had to sum up my final takeaway from this game, from George's sacrifice, Kat's death, Carter's attack, Emil's relentless efforts, and Noble Six's fight until the very end, it would be with this one passage in Man's Search for Meaning, when Viktor Frankl reflects on a quote by Dostoevsky himself. Dostoevsky's quote is the one I showed from the beginning. "There is only one thing I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings." Frankl continues to reflect on the quote by saying this: "These words frequently came to my mind after I became acquainted with those martyrs whose behaviors in camp, whose suffering and death bore witness to the fact that the last inner freedom cannot be lost. It can be said that they were worthy of their sufferings. The way they bore their suffering was a genuine inner achievement. It is this spiritual freedom which cannot be taken away that makes life meaningful and purposeful." Again, this profound contrast of opposites just gets to me. Just as the darkness of Jesus' death inspires us to carry our cross and be worthy of his sacrifice, Noble Team inspires us to do the same. To be worthy of our sufferings is to hold on to and deliver hope to those who come after us, which is kind of what Bungie was doing by making this story as their last in the series. I mean, really, this thing has a lot of levels to it. Just like in Dr. Halsey's final monologue at the closing of Halo Reach, we feel the raw emotion and grit that Bungie intended for this send-off to their story. And since no amount of talking about this monologue could do it justice, and since I could not have put it better if I tried, I will just play it for you.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close. I wish you could have lived to see it. But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.
All of these profound themes and emotional nuances are just littered throughout this incredible finale and prequel, which is something that I feel like can't really be said about any of the stories we've seen since. When Bungie created their swan song to Halo, they went all in, and as a result, Reach goes hard. I truly can't say enough about what this game means to me, about what this franchise means to me. But 14 years after it all came to a close, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to the creators of such deep and meaningful storytelling. As a storyteller myself, I hope that I can rise to the challenge and standard you guys left for the next generation, just as Master Chief rose to the standard that Noble Team and their sacrifice set before him.